My darling philosophers, welcome to our daily devotional reading. A special welcome to the members of our make-believe monastery. It's been a while since I mentioned explicitly what we are and what we do. We are a make-believe monastery. Specifically, we are a monastery in the name of Sophia, the Lady Wisdom. And so if you see anything in me that you find true or good or beautiful, it is the lady who you are seeing. Everything else is on me. But do be careful, because the lady is much more playful than you would imagine. So don't be too quick to judge what is true and what is good and what is beautiful. You might be surprised. My qualifications is that I did the normal route to be trained as a theologian. I have a master's in divinity. I did some work as a preacher in a church and as a lecturer at the university before I jumped out of the ivory tower. I am not a fallen woman. I jumped because I lost my faith. Many, many years passed since then, and then after intensive Jungian study and therapy, I was initiated via another path into priestesshood to 2018, so it's a while. I'm not someone who I'm not around for the short run, though experimenting with different worldviews I do for limited periods. And then in 2022, I was initiated specifically as a priestess of Sophia. And I've been serving the lady since. So I'm not here for a quickie. That's not what I'm interested in. Though I am tempted to simply continue sipping on my coffee and speaking nonsense. About the game that I'm playing. The long haul game. We should probably get on with it. So let's close our eyes. Turn inward to the great mystery within. Who are we? What are we? The greatest question of all. What the fuck is this? No why questions. Listen by paying attention to the words, and the world around you. And for now, see if you can hear through and between the lines of Plato. If there is truth that you might find worthy of pursuit. Socrates speaking. Well then, let me now have the rest of my answer. Seeing that rhetoric is one of those arts which works mainly by the use of words, and there are other arts which also use words, tell me what is the quality in words with which rhetoric is concerned. Suppose that a person asks me about the arts which I was mentioning just now. He might say, Socrates, what is arithmetic? And I should reply to him, as you reply to me, that arithmetic is one of those arts which takes effect through words. And then he would proceed to ask, words about what? And I should reply, words about odd and even numbers, and how many there are of each. And if he asked again, what is the art of calculation? I should say, that also is one of the arts which is concerned wholly with words. And if he further said, concerned with what? I should say, like the clerks in the assembly, as aforesaid, of arithmetic, but with a difference. The difference being that the art of calculation considers not only the quantities of odd and even numbers, but also their numerical relations to themselves and to one another. And suppose again I were to say that astronomy is only words. He would ask, words about what, Socrates? And I should answer that astronomy tells us about the motion of the stars and the sun and the moon and their relative swiftness. Gorgias, you would be quite right, Socrates. Socrates. And now let us have from you, Gorgias, the truth about rhetoric, which you would admit, would you not, to be one of those arts which act always and fulfill all their ends through the medium of words. Gorgias, true. Words which do what, I should ask? To what class of things do the words which rhetoric uses relate? Gorgias, to the greatest, Socrates, and the best of human things. Socrates, that again, Gorgias, is ambitious and ambiguous. I am still in the dark, for which are the greatest and best of human things? I dare say that you have heard men singing at feast the old drinking song, in which the singers emulate the goods of life. First, health, beauty next. Thirdly, as the writer of the song says, wealth honestly obtained. Gorgias, yes, I know the song, but what is your drift? Socrates, I mean to say, that the producers of those things which the author of the song praises, that is to say, the physician, the trainer, the money-maker, will at once come to you, and first the physician will say, oh, Socrates, Gorgias is deceiving you, for my art is concerned with the greatest good of men, and not his. And when I ask, who are you? He will reply, I am a physician. What do you mean, I shall say? Do you mean that your art produces the greatest good? Certainly, he will answer, for is not health the greatest good? What greater good can men have, Socrates? And after him the trainer will come and say, I too, Socrates, shall be greatly surprised if Gorgias can show more good of his art than I can show of mine. To him again I shall say, who are you, honest friend, and what is your business? I am a trainer, he will reply, and my business is to make men beautiful and strong in body. When I have done with the trainer, there arrives the money-maker, and he, as I expect, will utterly despise them all. Consider, Socrates, he will say, whether Gorgias or any one else can produce any greater good than wealth. Well, you and I say to him, and are you a creator of wealth? Yes, he replies. And who are you? A money-maker. And do you consider wealth to be the greatest good of man? Of course, will be his reply. And we shall rejoin, yes, but our friend Gorgias contends that his art produces the greater good than yours. And then he will be sure to go on and ask, what good? Let Gorgias answer. Now I want you, Gorgias, to answer, to imagine that this question is asked of you by them and by me. What is that which, as you say, is the greatest good of man, and of which you are the creator? Answer us. Gorgias. That good, Socrates, which is truly the greatest, being that which gives to men freedom in their own persons, and to individuals the power of ruling over others in their several states. Socrates. And what would you consider this to be? Gorgias. What is there greater than the word which persuades the judges in the courts, or the senators in the council, or the citizens in the assembly, or any other political meeting? If you have the power of uttering this word, you will have the physician your slave, and the trainer your slave, and the money maker of whom you talk will be found to gather treasures, not for himself, but for you, who are able to speak and to persuade the multitude. Socrates. Now I think, Gorgias, that you have very accurately explained what you conceive to be the art of rhetoric. And you mean to say, if I am not mistaken, that rhetoric is the maker of persuasion, having this and no other business, and that this is her crown and end. Do you know any other effect of rhetoric over and above that of producing persuasion? No, the definition seems to me very fair, Socrates, for persuasion is the chief end of rhetoric. Then hear me, Gorgias, for I am quite sure that if there ever was a man who entered on the discussion of a matter from pure love of knowing the truth, I am such a one, and I should say the same of you. Oh, Gorgias, oh, what is coming, Socrates? Socrates, I will tell you. I am very well aware that I do not know what, according to you, is the exact nature, or what are the topics of the persuasion of which you speak, and which is given by rhetoric, although I have a suspicion about both the one and the other. And I am going to ask, what is this power of persuasion which is given by rhetoric, and about what? But why, if I have a suspicion, do I ask instead of telling you? Not for your sake, but in order that the argument may proceed in such a manner as is most likely to set forth the truth. And I would have you observe that I am right in asking this further question. If I asked, what sort of a painter is Zeuxis, and you said the painter of figures, should I not be right in asking, what kind of figures, and where do you find them? Gorgias, certainly. Socrates. And the reason for asking the second question would be that there are other painters besides, who paint many other figures. True. But if there had been no one but Zeuxis who painted them, then you would have answered very well. Quite so. Now I want to know about rhetoric in the same way. Is rhetoric the only art which brings persuasion, or do other arts have the same effect? I mean to say, does he who teaches anything persuade men of that which he teaches, or not? Gorgias. He persuades Socrates. There can be no mistake about that. Socrates again. If we take the arts of which we were just now speaking, do not arithmetic and the arithmeticians teach us the properties of number? Certainly. And therefore persuade us of them? Yes. Then arithmetic as well as rhetoric is a maker of persuasion. I can't pronounce the word that is used. Artificer. Clearly. Socrates, and if anyone asks us what sort of persuasion and about what, we shall answer, persuasion which teaches the quantity of odd and even, and we shall be able to show that all the other arts of which we were not just now speaking are makers of persuasion, and of what sort and about what. Gorgias, very true. Then rhetoric is not the only maker of persuasion. True. Socrates, seeing then that not only rhetoric works by persuasion, but that other arts do the same, as in the case of the painter, a question has arisen which is a very fair one. Of what persuasion is rhetoric the maker, and about what? Is not that a fair way of putting the question? Gorgias, I think so. Socrates, then, if you approve the question, Gorgias, what is the answer? Gorgias, I answer, Socrates, that rhetoric is the art of persuasion in courts of law and other assemblies, as I was just now saying, and about the just and unjust. Socrates, and that, Gorgias, was what I was suspecting to be your notion. Yet I would not have you wonder if by and by I am found repeating a seemingly plain question. For I ask not in order to confute you, but as I was saying, that the argument may proceed consecutively, and that we may not get the habit of anticipating and suspecting the meaning of one another's words. Don't get into the habit of anticipating and suspecting the meaning of one another's words. Ask, and you will receive. I would have you develop your own views in your own way, whatever may be your hypothesis. Gorgias, I think that you are quite right, Socrates. Socrates, then let me raise another question. There is such a thing as having learned. Gorgias, yes. And there is also having believed. The other translation is to have been convinced. Gorgias, yes. And is the having learned the same as having believed? And are learning and belief the same things? Gorgias. In my judgment, Socrates, they are not the same. Socrates, and your judgment is right, as you may ascertain in this way. If a person were to say to you, is there, Gorgeous, a false belief as well as a true? You would reply, if I am not mistaken, that there is. Gorgeous, yes. Socrates, well, but is there a false knowledge as well as a true? Gorgeous, no. Socrates, no indeed. And this again proves that knowledge and belief differ. Very true. Socrates, and yet those who have learned as well as those who have believed are persuaded. Gorgeous, just so. Shall we then assume two sorts of persuasion, one which is the source of belief without knowledge, as the other is of knowledge or providing knowledge? Gorgeous, by all means. No one is knocking, they're on the ground floor, which is like quite far from me. They're rebuilding their kitchen or bathroom. I'm not sure which one. Can't remember. I think bathroom. Gorgeous. By all means, Socrates. And which sort of persuasion does rhetoric create in courts of law and other assemblies about the just and the unjust? The sort of persuasion which gives beliefs without knowledge, or that which gives knowledge? Clearly, Socrates, that which only gives belief. Socrates, then rhetoric, as would appear, is the maker of a persuasion which creates belief about the just and the unjust, but gives no instruction about them. True. Socrates, and the rhetorician does not instruct the courts of law or other assemblies about things just and unjust, but he creates belief about them. For no one can be supposed to instruct such a vast multitude about such high matters in a short time. Gorgeous, certainly not. Thus far our reading. And it becomes clearer what Plato's beef with the sophist were. This difficulty with persuasion into belief or opinion instead of instruction, persuasion through instruction, through teaching, into actual knowledge, into knowing. It is not always easy to know, though. I do feel that we as mankind, humankind, have done much progress. And there are so many people who are genuinely devoted to learning, to knowing, that I am in awe of who we are. And I am happy and proud to be a member of my species. But just as the greatest things in life are free, it can't be bought with money, it also feels as if the greatest things are the most difficult to know and requires a very different type of knowing. What is the greatest good of humankind? They list, or the drunken song list, health, beauty, and wealth. And then, in a way, Gorgias adds power, because that is what he claims to give people, if you read between the lines, power. I was thinking maybe there's some way that we can interpret these things in a more spiritual or metaphorical way. Health, beauty, wealth, and power. Well, health has long been considered not only a matter of the body, but also of the mind. The two in one. The holistic health idea. A healthy human being, in body and in soul, in mind, is indeed quite a great good to aspire to. Beauty, again, if you take it from the shallow skin deep type of beauty. Beauty of mind, beauty of heart. It is a great good. And wealth, if you take it away from mere money and include how wealthy you are in love, in friendship, in time, in belonging, it is a great good indeed. And what about power? I've become quite allergic to the phrase knowledge is power when I learned a bit more about Francis Bacon. What type of power is a good power? The power, one would say, obviously, that brings about the good. Power in character. Power in the inward man. And that type of power is very much related with my next sentence that I wrote down. Enter a discussion from pure love of knowing the truth. Pure love of knowing the truth. Or a genuine desire to understand. That might be a better way of saying that. And then if you are in a discussion with someone, asking him, confronting him on that which is his speciality, which he put out in the world, I consider most noble, very honorable, because that then genuinely seems to be driven by a love of learning, a desire to understand, and to deepen the discussion instead of having a boxing match. If you do enter into a conversation like that, I would say good on you. It's not at all something to regret. The opposite, in fact. The way I see it, though I might be mistaken, is that so many things nowadays, people are still clinging to how it used to be. And people who have been doing the debates for a long time still think that they should debate. But that's the old path. That's the old way. Like bumping theist against atheist. That's not going to get us closer to understanding. And you are destined to create a new way. And so good on you for not delivering what was expected of someone who still plays the old game. The art of persuasion. Persuading through skilled speech or teaching. Skilled speech with a simple aim to make others believe, to instill belief or opinion with them, and teaching to help others to learn, to instill knowledge. I don't think it takes much to discern which one is the better. But I fear it also doesn't take much to discern which one is most common. I heard a story this morning of a moth, a fable of flies and a moth. Flies, a bunch of flies apparently came to the king of the moths and said that they wanted to be moths themselves. Why not? We've also got wings. And the king of the moths said, well, the main purpose of the moth is to find the light. So if you can find the light, we can consider this, making you also moths. The flies went out in search of light, and they came back reporting, yes, indeed, we found light. We were successful. There is light everywhere. In candles, in fires, in ceilings. So apparently, so make us moths then, they said. Or at least, if not immediately, if you want to test the quality of the light we found, wait until the other moths, the real moths, returned, and then judge if we deserve the title moth. Upon this, apparently, the king of the moths laughed and said, you have already failed. You cannot be moths. Why? The flies asked. And the moth king said, the moths will not be coming back. They did not they search for light not merely to find and report, but to be consumed by the light. The light, the person from whom I heard the story, from her perspective, is truth, knowledge. And the moths, those who love truth, knowledge so much, that they sacrifice themselves. From this morning, I read a couple of interesting passages. How the true disciple of wisdom ought to conform himself or herself to her in all their actions. And then there's just a few words or phrases that I circled or underlined, and I'll read very sporadically. Oh, this one I didn't underline, but I'm going to read it anyways. Once there was a certain young man known to God, who while in his youth's early flower began to get involved in vanities. But divine mercy took pity on him, enlightened him in the ineffable way, and through paths both pleasant and difficult drew him along and finally brought him back to the path of truth through love of wisdom. O unheard of devotion, so devoted a beloved. Wisdom speaking, offer me yourself and everything that is yours, and do not take back what you offer. Gather together your distracted soul and scattered thoughts, and make them secure in me, the highest good. Even more with very ardent desire and a heartfelt embrace, O Son of the Eternal King, I press myself within your naked, stretched out, blood-bedewed arms, unwilling to be separated from you, in life or in death. To know the truth, that is what we are pursuing this year. That is my greatest desire. Sophia herself will guide our way.